All right. Good evening, everybody. I don't know how many people are managing to come on tonight or have the time to come on tonight, but I just thought I would come on and do a quick little chat about some of the frustrations that I went through when I started getting faced with more evidence that sort of disagreed with a lot of the things that I believed as far as being a massage therapist went. So I think one of the big things is who wants to get more better outcomes for their patients or with their patients. Uh, I know I can't see everybody put up their hands, but if you're listening in and you want to leave a comment, just say agree or disagree. I'm sure that everybody would agree because I think we all want to get better outcomes for our patients. And then the second thing would be how many people have been really, really frustrated over the years with interacting on social media regarding many, many things within our profession. So I think that's kind of where my story started because I got out of school, out of college, and I was this, I think, bright eyed, bushy tailed. Maybe I wasn't type of massage therapist that figured I was going to fix everybody that came in to see me. And I was going to be the heavy-handed guy, and I was going to dig my elbows into people, and I was going to do all these other things that I thought would make people feel better. And wholly was I wrong. But I think as time goes on, you just try to be a little bit less wrong as you go. But when I started getting into some of those social media discussions and things like that, I got really frustrated. And to be perfectly honest, I got really, really angry. I don't know if anybody else has been through the same experience that I did, but when I look back on it, there was a lot of people who I was seeing put posts up who were interacting within some of those Facebook groups and things like that. And I really didn't like those people because of what they were saying. Turns out years later, a lot of those people have become very good friends of mine because at some point I was able to, I think, look past it, or my opinion started to change. And I realized that the things that they were saying, they weren't doing it to be jerks online. They were actually trying to help people out. So a lot of my anger kind of started to fall by the wayside. And like I say, a lot of those people have become very good friends of mine over the years. And I'll talk a little bit later about support and having a community around you. And a lot of those people became my support and my community as I started to incorporate research and trying to understand better how I could help people. But the interesting thing that happened was after I finished being angry, things started to get better. And I started to see more of an opportunity because I don't know about you guys, but a lot of the times I would look in those groups and I would sit there being like, well, all these people are saying is that we can't do things like, trigger points aren't real, and we can't do all of these other things that they're talking about. And I thought that was limiting what we could do, but I started to look at it and realize that it actually opened up more opportunity because it gave us more opportunity with what we could do with our patients when we realized what we couldn't do. So once I started implementing research and I started looking at like the clinical guidelines of, say, low back pain, or the clinical guidelines of the SI joint or shoulder pain or rotator cuff, things like that, I started to understand more and more about what I could do. And the more that I looked and realized what I could do, then my outcomes started to get better. And once I started to focus on those things, I started to realize that if I just started to educate people and reassure them and do some movement with them and just deliver a really delicious massage that felt really good for them, things started getting easier for me, and they started getting better. And then this wonderful thing happened is I started having more success and I had better outcomes with my patients. And like I said at the beginning, I think that's what we're all shooting for, and I think that's what we all want. So it's funny. I used to, the clinic that I used to work at, I used to have a lawyer that would refer his car accidents people to me. And I remember this one person specifically would come in, and I would do half of the treatment with a bit of movement and a bit of exercise and some education. And then for the other half of the treatment, I would do massage. So I'd split the treatment 50-50 between the two. And as we started working together, and it was, of course, me gaining a bit more confidence in what I was doing, things started to change. And I'll never forget, the person looked at me because they were also going to some other practitioners. They were getting physio and chiro, and I don't know who the physio and chiro were that they were going to, but this person looked at me and said, "Why aren't the other people doing this with me? Because this is the stuff that works." And I kind of took a step back, and I was still trying to build my confidence with what I was doing at that point. But I took a step back, and I went, in the back of my mind, this little voice went, "Well, yeah, because that's what the research says, that this is the stuff that works." And I couldn't quite understand why the other practitioners weren't doing those things. And that's up to them. That's not my worry or my concern to think about what they're doing. So so in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, that's what the research says. So if you're at a point where you're maybe a bit hesitant about starting to incorporate research, because I know that it can be a daunting task thinking about, like, where do I go to find it? How much time do I have to read it? How do I incorporate all this stuff? I don't know if you guys saw the post that I put up earlier. I think it was last week. I came up with a little diagram of this that I think would work well. Is if we just start with what we already know. So if we look at the bottom, and I kind of like this example, because when we're looking about, becoming more evidence-based and incorporating research, it can seem like a mountain that we're climbing up. So if we just start with the things that we're really good at, the things that we already know, and I really like that, because your patients come to see you because they really like what you do. You're already very good at what you do. So keep doing that. And then when we look at a lot of the research and evidence-based practice, a lot of what's important is what your patient's preferences are. And part of that is built on the things that you're good at. So they like your treatment, so that's why they keep coming back to see you. And then what if we just started incorporating a little bit of research? So say you read an article a week, and I'm a slow reader, and I can probably read a research article in about a half an hour. So if you could devote, say, a half an hour a week to just doing something like that, then that, we're at least making a climb up that mountain. So sorry, I'm just going to take that out, and then I'm going to bring up a different image. And if we just started doing that on a semi-regular basis, then eventually things are going to kind of turn around. And then we'll start incorporating more research, and we're still going to do what patients like, and we're still going to do the things that we're really good at. But the things that we're really good at are going to change a little bit, because we're going to get more influenced by the research we read. And when we start looking at things like just clinical practice guidelines of what help people, the more that we can start to incorporate those things, gradually what your patients like are going to change a little bit. And part of the reason is because you're going to get better outcomes for them. And the things that you're really good at are going to change, because as you look at that research and as you look at those clinical guidelines, it's going to change the things that you enjoy doing. It's going to change your knowledge. And then all of a sudden, doing things like education, reassurance, movement, and the massage stuff that you're already really good at is just going to become second nature. Hi, Tracy. Good to see you on here. So all those things are just going to start to become like second nature to you. So as we saw in the image, it's going to change. And those things that you become really good at are going to result in you getting better outcomes with your patients, which is what we're all going for. But the other thing that happened for me is, as I started to get more interested in this stuff, and of course, it's also the reason why I started this blog, which I assume if you're on this page, you've read some of the stuff on the blog, is in order to try to help educate other practitioners. Because one of the big things that made a difference for me is that I started, because of some of those Facebook groups, to make those friends that I thought were jerks in the beginning, and start to build up a little bit more of a community around me, where there was people who were willing to help me. There was people who were willing, when I had questions, to answer those questions and kind of at least guide me in the right direction. So if you can start to do that, and we've got some stuff coming up that I think is going to help with that. So keep your eye out, because there's some stuff coming down the line about having more of a community around you to help with things like that. It can make a big difference, because then it's not quite as scary to go into some of those Facebook groups and ask questions. And having that community of friends around you that are willing to help, and they're willing to share their experience, and they're willing to kind of help to guide and direct you, can make a massive difference in your practice, and it can help to make a massive difference with the people that come to see you. So I just thought I'd jump on tonight and have a quick little chat about that. And it turns out what hasn't been much of a chat because nobody's left any questions, but great to see Tracy coming on and saying hello. But at least it's a way to start looking at things maybe a little bit differently, so that you can start incorporating more research into your practice, and maybe start to have a bit more of that community around you that's really going to help all of us, because the more of a community that we have, the more that we help each other, which really was the whole point in me starting this blog and this page and everything to start with. So for the 8 of you that watched tonight, thanks for listening in. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be back with a bunch more videos. So keep your eye out, and hopefully more people will be able to chime in. Yeah. Thanks, Tracy. Have a good night.